Hello, screen is visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Himanshu. So, this is your week 3 tutorial for the course Introduction to Cell Biology course. So, let's start with this. The first question for you guys: which of the following is not explained by Mendel law of genetics? Option A, independent assortment. Option B, dominance. C, segregation. And D is linkage. So, what you guys think that which is not explained by the Mendel law of genetics? Independent assortment, dominance, segregation, or linkage? Anyone wants to answer for this question?
A, I think.
A.
Ma'am, linkage.
Okay. Any other? Anyone else who wants to answer?
Ma'am, linkage.
Okay.
Ma'am, linkage.
Okay. So many of you are saying linkage. Okay, let's see. So the correct answer for this question is linkage. Right? Because these three are the three different independent laws by the Mendel. That is, first is independent assortment, second is dominance, and third one is law of segregation. Law of independent assortment, third law, law of dominance, and then law of segregation. So, dominance, I'll explain like later this all the laws, but linkage is not explained by the Mendel law of genetics. And what is linkage is when there are two genes like which is present very closely, then they try that link genes try to go into the next generation like together, but in but what Mendel said, he explained the law of independent assortment, and according to him, that if two genes are there, then they always assort independently, right? Like if one gene codes for the proteins that help in the eye color, and another gene set like which help in the like pod shape, yeah, flower color, yeah, or like hair color in human case, like one gene that is eye color and second one is hair color. So these two genes, according to Mendel, these two genes always go independently, always assort independently in the offspring, in the next generation, right? But then like later linkage process discovered by the scientists, and what they found, that some genes are that very closely attached with each other, that in those genes there will be no crossing over, and they'll go to the next generation together, like in the next generation, right? So are you getting? Anyone have any question on this? Any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Moving to the next question. A mutant that produces more proteins or proteins that is active than the wild type is called as, like, mutant that is now producing a more protein. So option A is amorph, B hypomorph, C is hypermorph, and D is antimorph.
Option C, hypermorph.
Okay, one of you are saying option C. Anyone else want to answer?
Hypermorph.
Hypermorph, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am. Option C.
okay. So all of you are saying option C. So let's see. C is the correct answer. Anyone wants to explain this? Like what is amorph? Have you heard amorph, hypomorph, entomorph?
Does not produce any protein.
Right. So you heard about this Muller scientist, Hermann J. Muller. He's very famous. He discovered this mutation phenomena. Yeah, ki mutation will happen and there will be change in the DNA structure. So Hermann J. Muller, who also got this Prize in 1946, he was a 1946 Nobel Prize winner. So he coined this all the terms: amorph, hypomorph, hypermorph, entomorph, and neomorph, so that he can classify the mutation, that how they are behaving in different situation, like he like which kind of mutations are there, and that mutation what will they affect, like what will be the effect on the proteins. So he classify this mutation based on the behavior in different genetic situation, as well as in between the genetic interaction, gene interaction between themselves. So first is amorphic. Amorphic means, one of you answered very correctly, that causes a complete loss. A, that its name also depicting that what is the function, like what it depicts. Amorph, right? That is, there is a complete loss. A morph, that is describe a mutation that causes a complete loss of a gene function. Now that genes will not code any proteins, right? If that gene is like previously it helping in the hair color, but after the morph mutations, now it will not code any proteins that help in the coloration of hair. So it, there is a complete loss of a gene function. Hypomorphic, hypo words always used for the like loss, like less, right? So it describe a mutation that causes a partial loss of gene function. Hypomorph, like now there is a decrease, like there is a loss of gene function. And hyper, that in the question asks, that produces more proteins and now the protein is more active than the wild type, right? So hypermorphic mutations causes an increase in the normal gene function, right? So we can call hypermorphic alleles are a gain of function, and amorphic we can call it as a loss of gene function, right? And antimorph, then what is antimorph? Antimorph are the dominant mutations that act in opposition to the normal gene activity. Antimorph, like now it, now after this mutation it is not coding the same proteins, right? These are the dominant mutation. Now whatever that gene have to code, now it is coding opposite to that proteins, right? So that are the dominant mutations. Like some other dominant kind of mutations will happen that act in opposition to the normal gene function. Like if it helping in the growth, now it like growth of the hair, now it causing loss, like opposition to the normal gene activity, whatever the proteins. So any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then moving to the next question. In Mendelian genetics, if two heterozygous parents, right, heterozygous means like there is a, we know that in gene alleles are there, like two alternative form of a gene. Heterozygous means one is a dominant one and another one is recessive, like in a heterozygous parents. If two heterozygous parents are crossed with each other, then the phenotypic ratio of the offspring is, so what will be the phenotypic ratio if two heterozygous parents are crossed with each other? So you have a 2 minutes time. Then you can answer for this question.
3:1.
Okay. So one of you are saying the 3:1. Anyone else?
Ma'am, 3:1.
3
3:1,
is to
ma'am.
1. 3 is to 1, ma'am.
Okay. 3:1. So all of you are saying 3:1. Okay. Then anyone wants to answer what is heterozygous and what is homozygous?
Heterozygous are the genes which have the dominant and recessive allele combined, and the homozygous are the ones which have a single like pair of allele.
Right. That may be either the dominant one, both are the dominant one, or maybe the both are the recessive one, right? Like both are the small letter. And we generally use dominant one in the capital letter and the small one for the recessive. Right. In a gene, like the phenotypic ratio, like the protein in what is the phenotype? Like
Physical expression of a gene.
right. And what is genotype?
Genetical expression of a gene.
Yeah, physical, like morphological, yeah, physical. And genotypically in a gene, like there are the three main factors which influence the like gene expression. And what are those? What first is like what is the genetic constituent of the gene, and we can call it as a genotype, right? And then another is a phenotype, and third one is a like environmental factor. And these combined will tell like what will be the expression of those proteins. And here they are only asking about the phenotypic ratio, right? Like outside, like the morphological, we can say that like what are the different ratio if we are crossing the heterozygous parents, right? So in the Mendel law of dominance also, this is a very simple cross. He crossed first this homozygous plant, that is capital T and small t, and in the F1 generation he found that the all plants, he found that all will be the tall, but he crossed with the tall and the dwarf. But in F1 generation what he found, that all the plants, he was getting the like tall. And after the F1 generation, then he self pollinate those plant. And after the self crossing, what he found that the phenotypic ratio comes out to be 3 is to 1. 3 is to 1, that is 3 is the tall one and 1 is the dwarf one. But the genetic constituent of all the tall plants are not the same. Why? Because like some are in the homozygous form and some are in the heterozygous, right? Second. So when this heterozygous plant self crossing, then one tall plant will be in the homozygous form that have a both allele are the dominant one. And in the two ratio, like these are the one is the dominant and allele and another one is the recessive allele. And in the homozygous dwarf plant, there is a like both the alleles are the recessive one, right? Small one. So the genotypic ratio for this is the 1 is to 1. But here in this question, they ask like what is the phenotypic ratio. So you people very correctly answered for this question, that is 3 is to 1 is the right answer for this. Okay, then anyone have any doubt for this question?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then, fourth question, the idea that different pair of alleles are passed to offspring independently is Mendelian principle of option A unit inheritance, option B segregation, option C is independent assortment, and option D is none of the above. what we call this, like different pair of allele are passed to offspring independently.
Independent assortment.
Okay. Anyone else?
Segregation, ma'am, I think.
Ma'am, independent assortment.
Segregation. Okay, independent assortment. Read carefully. Like the different pair of allele are passed to offspring independently.
Ma'am, independent of autism.
Independent assortment.
Okay.
Independent assortment, ma'am.
Okay. Let's see what's the answer. Many of you are saying independent assortment. And so the correct answer for this is independent assortment. Segregation, like one of you answer the segregation. Segregation, what is the segregation? Any one of you wants to answer for this? Like what is segregation? What is segregation? Anyone?
Ma'am, during the formation of gametes, the two alleles from the gene separate from each other, which carry one allele on the each, is called segregation.
Right. During the formation of gametes formation, like if this capital T or small t, we have a two alternative form of gene, right? We have a two allele, right, for one gene. So these two allele, how it comes, one from the paternal and one from the maternal. So during the formation of gametes, they both carry the allele, and then later on it will come, like it will segregate, and it will form like during the formation of gamete both the allele will segregate, right? Because in gametes are like n or 2n,
N.
right? Ploidy level for that. So it will carry the one allele and they'll segregate, and then they'll form one from the paternal and one from the maternal. But like, and these will form the like one gene, right? But in independent assortment, this is a different pair of alleles, right? Here independent assortment, like if one gene that helps in the eye color of a human, and this is the another gene that help in the hair color of the human. These two genes, like we know that there is a meiosis process in which like in meiosis what will happen, these homologous chromosomes will separate, right? So in independent assortment, these two different genes which have a different pair of allele, this have a different pair and this have a different pair, they will pass to the offspring independently. They will not hinder their each of their functions, right? But then later on linkage will come, then like which is the exception for this Mendelian principle, that some genes which are very close, they will not go to the crossing, which will never go to the crossing over, then they will always pass to the offspring in the like together, right? But in segregation, like during the formation of gamete, that the two alleles will segregate differently, and in independent assortment, that different pair of alleles, that is whatever that is TT or something, that they will go independently. Like these two genes alleles will never mix, right? Here we can say that TT, or here we can say that RR, right? This chord. So these always in the F1 generation, if we'll see the phenotypic ratio, it will give the 3:1 only, and it will also give to the 3:1. But when we see the dihybrid cross, then it will come with how like what is the ratio for dihybrid cross, then it will come 9 is to 3 is to 3 is to 1, right? Because 3 is to 1 and 3 is to 1, and we will do the ratio 3 is to 1 ka 2, then it will come the 9 is to 3 is to 3 is to 1. And if we see the genotypic ratio for that, that is 1 is to 2 is to 1, 2 is to 4 is to 2, is 1 is to 2 is to 1, like that. So these two different alleles will always, like different genes will always independently go to the next generation, like goes to the offspring, like independently. Are you getting?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So moving to the next question, a plant with heterozygous alleles, right? Heterozygous, that is two different allele. One we call it as capital A and another one is a small a, right? A plant with the heterozygous allele has a blue flowers, and one of the allele code for the white flower, but like one of either this one or this one. One code for the white flower. Which of the statement is true? Blue color is dominant trait, white color is a recessive trait, and C is a blue color is a recessive trait, or none of the above. In heterozygous allele, it is forming a blue colors, and one of the allele code for either capital A or small a code for the white flower. So, which of the following statement is true? Or
think option A.
okay, multiple
Ma'am, for this, both
I
A and
think
B are true,
option
no,
A
ma'am.
and B.
hard. Okay, option A and B. Two of you are saying option A and B. Anyone else? Huh. In this question, you can select more than one option. So you are right. Like both A and B are the right answer for this in the previous. So from the question only we are getting hint, because in the heterozygous allele, it is like this from the, this is from, like it form the blue flowers. That means whatever it will form, this one is the dominant one, because dominant allele always mask the expression of the like recessive one, right?
Recessive trait.
Yeah, recessive trait. So it always hide the mask of this recessive trait. So if it is producing the blue color, so here we can, like now we are sure that the blue color is the dominant one, right? And then he is saying like one of the allele code for white flower, that means white one is a recessive trait, right? So both options are the right, like blue color is the dominant trait and white color is the recessive trait. So you people were right. The next question, which of the following statement about enzymes is not true? Option A, all enzymes are proteins. Option B, enzyme reduces the activation energy of a reaction. Option C, enzyme participate in cellular metabolic processes. And option D is enzyme speed up a reaction. So carefully read the statements and then you can answer. Well,
Option D.
okay,
Enzymes reduce the activation energy of a reaction, ma'am.
okay. One of you are saying option D, and another one is like option B. Anyone else?
Ma'am, option A.
Okay, option A. Read carefully.
Ma'am, option A, I think.
Okay, so
Ma'am, option A.
okay, so three people answer for this option A, and one for B, and one for D. Okay, let's see. The right answer for this is all enzymes are proteins, because we know that all enzymes are not proteins. So Anyone want to answer for this, like which are not proteins, enzyme, like which are the proteins which are not, like which are the enzymes which are not proteins? Any name? Why you people answer that the option A is not true? You know the name, like which enzymes are not proteins?
Ma'am, ribozyme.
Right. Ribozyme is the exception, which and what they are made up of? Ribozyme?
Ribonucleotides. Nucleic acid.
Yeah, RNA, ribonucleotides, right? So these ribozymes are the exception for this. Otherwise, all other enzymes are the proteins. They are made up of proteins, right? And the second statement is enzyme reduces the activation energy of a reaction. What is activation energy? What is activation energy? The minimum energy which required by the enzyme, right, to convert the substrate into the product. We called it as activation energy. So, like, uh, and third one, like this is the mechanism of enzyme activity. If there will be a less energy, like here, this is the reactant, right? And we want this reactant, like this is the substrate, and these reactant will convert into the products, right? If we want, because we know that the substrate have a very high energy, and whatever product will form, it will always be will off of like less energy, right? Because we know that the product which have a like, if we are taking three different molecules, and if we want to see that which one is the stable one, so we will go always, we will always go for that one which have a very less energy, right? Because if they are releasing like high energy and now they are in the very low energy, then we will consider it as a stable compounds, right? That's why when reactant convert into the product, then the product will always be of like low energy level, right? If the activation energy, like the minimum energy which required to convert this reactant into product, we called it as activation energy, right? If it have to achieve this one height, or if it have to achieve this one or this one, then which one is the like most feasible one and the most faster one? The less one, we can take it as example, like in practical, like if there is a peak, Himalaya peak, and there is another mountain which have a very low peak, and then this one is a even the very small peak, like uh, a small mountain. So if you people want to climb and to reach this much this level, so which one is the faster one and which one you will acquire like very fastly? You have to reach here, like down, you have to go to the top and then you have to come back like down. So which one is the easy?
Third one.
Third one, right? So this enzyme, what they do, they reduces this activation energy, so that the time for that, like it will be easy to convert. Now it will be very easy that this substrate will convert into the product very fastly. And how it happens, this is the mechanism that this enzyme have some specific site, and we called it as an active site, right? And it have a very unique shape, like very, each enzymes have a very unique shape. So that particular type of substrate will come and it will bind to that enzyme pocket, and after that these will form a bond, and we called it as enzyme substrate complex, right? And then reaction happens and there will be some conformational change, and then after that it will after the like all the reactions and all, and finally it will convert into the products, right? If there will be no enzyme, like if any reaction, it convert into the like milliseconds. And if we don't like we know like thermodynamics is a process which shows that this reaction is possible or not, right? And we know that we can convert the coal into the diamond, but this, we know that through the thermodynamics that this is the possible reaction. And through the enzyme kinetics, these all study come into the enzyme kinetics, right? Like how fast the reaction is and how slow the reaction is. But if there is an absence of that enzyme, maybe that reaction will take a long, like very long years. But in this case, though, it's not possible because it will also require very high temperature that is not feasible in the practical use, right? And we can take here as an example of like any uh, Krebs cycle Krebs cycle enzymes, or we can take citric acid cycle enzymes. So these enzyme, if there will be like non-functional enzyme, or it will not like truncated enzyme, then these reaction maybe take, like these reaction, if this reaction is possible, then it will take a very long years, like many years. But through this enzyme, it happens in a millisecond or this thing. And how they do this? By reducing the activation energy of a reaction. When we add this enzyme, it will reduce the activation energy, so that these will overall energy released during the reaction will be very less, and it will convert this reactant into the product very fastly. And second, enzyme participate in cellular metabolic processes. In all our metabolic processes, we know that enzymes play a very important role. They convert into the product, and then again that product will go to the next reaction. So in this way, this participate in cellular metabolic processes, right? So this is the state. This is the right statement. And the D statement is enzymes speed up a reaction, right? Because we know that the with the help of enzyme, the reactions happen in a like milliseconds, seconds, right? Which may even take without the help of enzyme may take a like few, like many years, few to many years. So any doubt or any question?
Ma'am,
Yeah.
so can we say that enzyme work like a catalyst?
Yeah, enzymes are the catalyst. We can because it act as a catalyst. Enzymes are the catalyst because it catalyze the reaction. It enhances the reaction, like catalyst, which help as a like speed up the reaction, right? So
Yes,
enzymes are the catalyst. Anyone else?
Ma'am, in few books it is given that all enzymes are proteins.
All enzymes are proteins.
Yeah,
In which book?
like in NCRTs also few NCRTs. Biology NCRT.
NCRT. Maybe they that were
Yeah.
not updated.
They said that all enzymes are proteins, but all proteins are not enzymes.
Okay, in NCRT, maybe NCRT are not updated, but now though we know because some proteins are like some enzymes are there which are not proteins. That is true, like all proteins are not enzymes, but all enzymes are protein. This is not true because we know that now that ribozymes are the proteins. So
Okay, ma'am.
okay. So next question, which of the following is the most abundant biomolecule on Earth? Option A is lipid, option B is protein, C is carbohydrates, and D is nucleic acid. Which is the like most abundant?
Nucleic acids.
Okay, nucleic acid. Anyone else?
and carbohydrates.
Okay, carbohydrates. Anyone? This is the like
Ma'am, carbohydrates.
okay, carbohydrates.
Carbohydrates.
Okay. So many of you are answering option C, that is carbohydrates. Anyone else? So let's see. So carbohydrates are the correct answer. We This is a statement based question because in the on the earth that the carbohydrate is the most abundant biomolecule on earth. And what these carbohydrates are and what are they made up of? These carbohydrate is a biomolecule, and it consists of a carbon, hydrogen and oxygen atoms, right? As also the name also depicts, like carbo, that is carbon, hydrate like hydrogen and oxygen. And usually with the hydrogen oxygen atom ratio, like in like carbohydrate, mostly this ratio will be 2 is to 1. Like hydrogen 2 and oxygen is 1, that is 2 is to 1. If hydrogen will be like, if there are 4 hydrogen, then how much oxygen will be? 2, right? So mostly hydrogen oxygen atom ratio in this carbohydrate is 2 is to 1. And but some are, because we know that in bio exception, like always exceptions are there. So not all carbohydrate conform to this precise stoichiometric definition, and few examples are there which don't follow this 2 is to 1 ratio. And the examples are this uronic acid and deoxy sugar, and which deoxy? This fucose. So these two are the exceptions, like these two are the exceptions which don't follow this 2 is to 1 ratio, that hydrogen oxygen atom, right? So the next question, a test cross is performed to determine the genotype of a tall plant, right? The cross results in equal number of short and tall plants. The genotype of the parent plant is, so you have a 2 minute time.
Option C.
Okay. Anyone else?
Option C, ma'am.
Ma'am, option C.
Okay.
Option C.
Okay. All of you are saying options C. Let's see. Okay, C is the right answer for this question. What is this test cross? Like, we know that in the F1 generation we are getting tall plants, but we don't know the genotype, right? We don't know like whether all the plants is the like homozygous dominant allele or heterozygous, right? We don't know the genotype, whether it will be capital T or capital T small t. And but we want to know the genotype of this plant, right? So what we'll do is we cross with the small t dwarf plant, right? Homozygous recessive plant, to determine the genotype of this plant, right? So this is the test cross. So a test cross is performed to determine the genotype of a tall plant, and we are getting equal number of short and tall plants. And in the test cross, we know that the what ratio will come? 1 is to 1. That is, two plants will be the capital T small t, and other two plant will be the small t, right? When we set up the cross, like this will form the capital T small t and capital T small t, right? And then this small t and small t. So two we are getting the capital T small t, and two we are getting small t, right? 1:1 ratio. So here we are ensured, like after getting the 1:1 ratio, that the parent plant genotype will be capital T small t, right? So you people were right. The next question. So this is the, like, when a tall plant has crows, we know that with the dwarf, all the offspring will be the tall. It means that the tall plant is the, but we know, but we don't know that, like whether it is a homozygous tall or heterozygous tall. So we will cross it with the dwarf plant, right? And we are getting 50-50 ratio, that is 1:1. So that from that ratio, now we are ensured from that test cross that the parent plant will be capital T small t. Whenever we'll get this 1:1 ratio or 50-50 ratio, this means that the parent plant genotype will be capital T small t, right? So this is a test cross. Genotype of a dominant plant can be determined by, see,
Test cross.
okay,
Yes, ma'am, test cross.
okay. Anyone else?
It's test cross, ma'am.
Okay, let's see. Test cross is the right answer. And also in the previous slide, I mentioned that if we want to determine the genotype of any plant, dominant plant, because dominant, maybe it is dominant, like homozygous dominant or heterozygous. So we always figure it out with the help of test cross, right? So this is a test cross. This is a tall plant of an unknown genotype. We cross with the homozygous recessive plant and we'll get 1:1 ratio. This will ensure the genotype of any dominant plant, and we called this cross as a test cross, right? So you people were right. Test cross is the right answer. Then moving to the next question, the cross where the sources of gamete are reversed is called as A option reciprocal cross, B is a reverse cross, C is a dihybrid cross, and D is a test cross where the sources of gamete are reversed.
Option B, no?
Okay. Anyone else?
Ma'am, it might be test cross.
Test cross. But in test cross, though, we are not reversing source of gametes, as I also
Uh,
read.
because the back cross is the cross where we get the reverse of the gametes. Though the back cross is otherwise known as test cross, so I thought it might be a test cross too.
Okay, read carefully. Like the cross where the sources of gamete are reversed. Sources of gamete means here, like we are reversing the sources of gamete, where we are getting the gametes, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That, like, initially male was capital T and female was small t, and but in the next rows what we are doing, that small t we are taking male, and capital T we are taking female. So that means source of gamete we are reversing here.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is the question. So what we call this is, now you people,
Ma'am, reciprocal cross.
okay, anyone else?
Ma'am, option C.
See, Dihybrid cross. Mm, okay, we'll see. Dihybrid here, like dihybrid cross means in the dihybrid, in the name itself, we can say that like two different cross, like peak, like during Mandel when he did the dihybrid cross, then like he take the p like pod shape and the pod color, right? So we can call as a dihybrid cross, but so the answer for this question is reciprocal cross, because as I already mentioned, the what is this, like source of gamete means we are reversing the, like if this is male and this is female, and male is capital T and female is small t, but in the another cross now we are reciprocate this, like small t will be man and capital T capital will be female. So this is the reciprocal cross. And reverse cross, there is no such type of cross. Reverse cross, dihybrid cross means if like two different characters we will take, then we called it as a dihybrid cross, like pot shape, pot color, like together we are crossing both the characters, we are taking both the characters, right? Then we call it as a dihybrid cross. And the test cross, as I already explained, that if we want to see the genotype of any dominant plant, any tall plants, any dominant plant, and we want to see that what is this dominant uh, plant trait genotype, like what is a perfectly genotype, for that we always cross with the dwarf plant, that is small t, and we call it as a this test cross. So Mendel, why how this reciprocal cross comes? Because when he's doing this all the experiments, because we know that the Mendel, we call it as a father of this modern genetics also, and you know that he started doing this experiment in 1860s, right? But these during his time he never got fame, like all the people were like, no, this is not possible like that, because he used very statistical analysis and mathematics, and people were like, "Ki, how this is possible and how like that." So but again in the 1900, three different scientists like Cole Correns, von Tesmark, and Hugo de Veres. These three scientists in the 19s again rediscovered this work of this Mendel, and then he got fame. Like yeah, like he was right. Then people were like Mendel was right. Like he is a very extraordinary. He was a like Australian monk. He did this farming and all, and he saw ki like he do this pea plant farming, and he grow the pea plants. And when after he chose this because of this very short life cycle and very contrasting characters, because we can see that the pod shape and even pod color, flower shape, flower color, and like in one season he harvest all the seeds and all, and then he analyzed like what he separate out the seeds, like which is the some type wrinkled, and separate out this round seed, and he analyzed all the data sheet and all. And in the next season also, then like after one season, then he get all the plants are the tall, so he very beautifully observed all these traits. Then in the next season, then he thought ki like whatever the seed will come na, he again regrow, he put the seeds and grow the plants, right? And then self pollination will happen, and then he again collect the seeds and again like analyze all the data, and then in this way he did all the mathematical analysis and all those, and he discovered very beautifully like in 1880s, like 1860s. But that time people were like we know na, because how like DNA discovery, when like in the first class I told you na, like when this DNA discovery will when DNA was discovered, Anyone wants to answer? Anyone? When DNA was discovered by Watson and Crick?
1953.
Right. But in 1862, people even don't know about this thing, like DNA and all. So he named it as a trait, right? So like something is going on, and we don't know even DNA. Before that, he gave all those terms, all those crosses, and that this is going like from parents to like some information is going on in the offspring, but we don't know that DNA is there like that. So that's why that time people was not believing him. But after the discovery of his work by this Hugo de Veres and this Carl Correns and von Tessmark, then he like yeah, he was right. So what is this? He performed a reciprocal cross because he also wanted like all those questions. Then he was also curious whether there is some gender influence inheritance or not. If like I am reversing the gender, like if I'll take this homozygous uh, dominant as a female, like if I reverse this, like if I reciprocate this course, then what will happen? So he was uh, very like curious to know. Then for that he performed this reciprocal cross, in which mother phenotype in the first cross is the father phenotype in the second cross, right? And the father phenotype in the first cross is the mother phenotype in the second cross. When he did, but he found in the result that the result of the two crosses were identical. So then he established that it doesn't matter whether genetic determinants for the seed shape are located in the male or female parent. So after the result analysis, he concluded that it doesn't matter like what will be the sex of that parents, that genetic determinant, from where it come from, either male or female. So and then those crosses he named it as a reciprocal cross, right? Anyone have any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Next question. In pea plant, seed shape can be round or wrinkled, right? Round or wrinkled, and the seed color can be yellow or green. And in the question, what they're mentioning, round is the dominant one over wrinkled, right? That is means round is dominant one over wrinkled, and then yellow is dominant one over green, right? This yellow is dominant over green. In a cross between, this is a dihybrid cross, right? That because we are taking two characters simultaneously, that is round seeds and also the this thing, color of this seed color, and also the seed shape, that is round shape, and this color also yellow or green. So because we are taking two characters simultaneously and we named it as a dihybrid cross, right? Then how many offsprings will have a round and yellow seeds? They are asking about this round and yellow seeds, right? Option A is 9, option B is 3, option C is 0, option D is 1. So you have a 2 minutes time. Take your time, and you can throw the cross in your notebook, and after that you can answer for this question. Okay. Thumbs up. Anyone wants to answer for this question?
Zero.
Okay. Zero.
Zero, ma'am.
Why you people are saying zero is the correct answer? Can you explain?
And because there is no genotype for dominant color yellow.
Yeah, right. So in this question, we don't even draw. Like we don't even need to draw this type of hybrid cross and see, because in the parent plant only they are taking dwarf, like homozygous recessive trait, right? Small y and the small y, right? Sorry, this small y, whenever will cross this will get only what, green, right? Because here they are not taking in the dominant form, right? So that's why zero is the correct answer for this question. Anyone have any doubt on this? Whenever you have to do the dihybrid cross, you don't need to do the calculation like both the characters simultaneously. You can do like that. Capital R, small r, right? Then what will we found? Capital R, small r, right? And then capital R, this one, capital R, small r, and this one is capital R, and capital R, small r. So 50% will get the capital R, and 50% what will we get? Capital R, small r, right? And for y, though, we don't even need to calculate, because y will always get 100% small y, right? So,
Yes, ma'am.
right. So what we will get, 50% we will get the capital R, small y, right? That is round and yellow seeds. This round is the homozygous dominant one, and 50% what we will get, capital R, small r, and capital R, small y, right? So in this way we can calculate, and from there only we are ensured like we'll get no yellow seeds, because these are in the homozygous recessive form. So zero is the correct answer. Next, a mutant allele where the protein product binds to the wild type protein and inactivates. It is a, what we call it, it inactivates. And the option A is amorph, option B hypomorph, C is a hypermorph, and D is a antimorph. I already explained you guys. So what will be the answer?
Is it antimorph?
Antimorph. Okay, we'll see. It inactivates means nothing is coating. And in antimorph, what I explained,
Ma'am, the answer is amorph.
okay, amorph. Anyone else?
Ma'am, antimorph.
Okay, okay, let's see. Antimorph. Uh, a mutant allele where the protein product binds to the wild type proteins. It inactivates. It inactivates this wild type proteins, and now it's not coding that proteins, right? Maybe it will code another one. It not like properly stop that one because amorphic, that is a complete loss. Here these are the like I think in this question, amorph also we can consider because they are not saying ki whether we have this opposition to normal gene activity, right? So antimorph is the correct answer, and I think amorph also we can consider because it inactivates, right? Inactivates means there is a complete loss of function. So in this statement only, like, so whoever saying amorph, I think you are also right. Because in this statement they didn't even mention like opposition. So antimorph is the correct answer, and amorph also we can consider. Next is if both genotype and phenotype shows the same ratio, phenotype also and genotype also. One is 2, 2 is to 1 in the F2 generation. It shows incomplete dominance in monohybrid cross. Option B is complete dominance in monohybrid cross. Option C is dihybrid cross, and D is a codominance. So you have a 2 minutes time.
Ma'am, incomplete dominance in monohybrid cross.
Okay. Anyone else?
Option A.
Okay.
Option A.
Okay.
Option A, ma'am.
Okay. What is incomplete dominance?
Ma'am, the offspring produced will be the intermediate of both the parents.
Right. So option A is the right answer for this question. You people are right. Incomplete dominance in monohybrid cross. So we know that Mendel gave three laws, right? Law of dominance, law of segregation, and law of independent assortment. Right? These three laws. And we know that this law of complete dominance, and what we say that in the complete dominance, that if there is a this dominant gene, it will always mask the effect of the recessive gene, right? And we called as a law of dominance, that the dominance gene always dominant over this recessive allele, and it will never produce the effect of this like phenotype of this recessive, right? And we called it as law of dominance, that is dominancy. But few exceptions are there, that is incomplete dominance, complete dominance, complementary, supplementary, like some genetic interaction inheritance are there, which shows the exception to this law of dominance. And one such as incomplete dominance, whenever like in the question it was like it's mentioned like genotype and phenotype shows the ratio of 1 is to 2 is to 1, so incomplete dominance is there. And what will happen, we know that the red is the dominant trait, right? Capital R, that is capital R is the dominant one, and this R2 which codes for the white proteins, this is the white one, and this white one is the recessive one. But when we self pollinate this, self crossing, after the self crossing, what will happen, that in the F1 generation, instead of getting this red, we are getting what? Pink. That is intermediate of this both, like red and this white one. That means both genes are trying to give their effect, right? And that's why we are getting what? Intermediate phenotype. So when both the gene express equally, then we call it as and we what type of phenotype will getting? Intermediate phenotype will get, so we call it as a incomplete dominance because neither this gene and not this gene is dominant. So there is a no complete dominance like out of these two. So that's why some intermediate effect will come and we call it as a incomplete dominance. And after the F1 generation, in the F2 generation, what we'll get? 1 is to 2 is to 1 ratio, both genotype also and phenotype also, because in the genotype what we'll get? R1 R1, R2 R2, that is 1 1, and this R1 R2 R1 R2 are the 2. So phenotype ratio is 1 is to 2 is to 1, right? And also the genotype ratio: red 1, pink 2, and yellow with this white 1. So 1 is to 2 1, 1 is to 2 is to 1 ratio. So both ratio, if we are getting the same, then incomplete dominance in monohybrid cross, right? And monohybrid cross mention karna is important because 1 is to 2 1 ratio also they mentioned. So incomplete dominance in monohybrid cross. The next question: if an allele is dominant in one sex and recessive in another, it is an example of: A option is incomplete dominance, B option is codominance, C option is simple Mendelian inheritance, and D option is sex limited inheritance, and E option is sex influenced inheritance. So you have 2 minutes time. If an allele is dominant in one sex and recessive in another, it is an example of:
Ma'am, is it codominance?
codominance. Okay, we'll see. Anyone?
Option D.
Option D, sex limited inheritance. Okay, we'll see. Anyone else wants to answer?
Ma'am, option E, sex influenced inheritance.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Co-dominance, I think.
Codominant.
Ma'am, option E.
Okay. Mm, we'll see. Because all of you are saying different options. So in the statement they are mentioned कि one allele is dominant in one sex. Let's go one by one. Incomplete dominance, so we know, because in incomplete dominance, like neither dominant one and neither the recessive allele have show the dominancy, right? And we'll get the only intermediate, right? In incomplete dominance, because dominant allele will not mask the effect of this recessive allele completely, right? And we called it as incomplete dominance. And in codominance, like word also depicting codominance, means both genes are the dominant one, right? But here they are mentioning if an allele is dominant in one sex. Here they are mentioning that in one sex, right? Either male or either female, right? But here one word also they are saying, this is showing the dominance ones, like law of dominance it's following, that if an allele is dominant in one sex, but here also mentioning that in one sex, right, and recessive in another. Simple Mendelian inheritance, no, we never studied, because in simple Mendelian, so we know because law of dominance will follow. Here the law of dominance is not following, because here that we will consider that reciprocal cross also, that sex will reverse will get the same effect. And we know that in simple Mendelian inheritance we'll consider three laws only: the law of dominance, law of segregation, and law of independent assortment. But here in the statement they are saying dominant in one sex, then sex limited inheritance. Limited means that is limited in one, that is expressing in one, and that means in another one it's not showing at all. But in the statement they are mentioning it's dominant, like in one sex, that means in another sex also it's expressing, right? But it is more dominant in one sex, right, and recessive in another. In case of sex limited inheritance, what is the main difference between sex limited inheritance and sex influence inheritance? That in case of sex limited inheritance, the allele is dominant in one. It means if this is the capital T, right, both are dominant one, here though it's fine. But like what this statement is true for the, like, if capital T small t are there, then what will be the case? Because this is in the heterozygous form, if it will follow the complete dominancy wala then it, people will get the, like, tall, like in case of pea plant like tall we are getting, right? In in complete dominance will follow this capital T form this pink flower, right? In codominance what will happen, that both the genes will form the products, like this is small ab, capital AB blood group, like. And simple Mendelian inheritance it will form the tall plant only. And the sex limited inheritance, that this capital T capital small t will give effect in only one sex, right? Either male or female, it will depends, like what we are talking about, right? And this sex influence inheritance means capital T small t, it give effect in the male also and female also, but it is more pronounced in one sex. If let's take an example of this baldness, if this capital T small t will present in man, then we found that the men are this almost baldness. This baldness is very prominent in case of like this is the male and this is the female, right? This is more pronounced in case of male, right? Capital T small t, like capital T small t, if any man is there, then there will be more baldness. And if this capital T female will inherit, then this baldness gene will not affect female that much, but it will affect more in male. That's why this is influenced. That means there may be role of this hormones and all, there may be some hormonal control, like this gene may be controllable by this hormones, right? So that's why we call this as a sex influence inheritance. And if sex limited inheritance will take the example, then it will affect, like, if this baldness is the sex limited inheritance, if, but this we know that this is a sex influence inheritance. In case let's consider ki if it's a sex limited inheritance, then what will be the case, that the capital T small t female will get the no baldness at all, and male will get the like baldness, but in influenced female also some like hair fall will be there, but that is not pronounced as pronounced, more pronounced in male, right? So sex controlled character, also called as sex influenced character, a genetically controlled feature that may appear in organism of both sexes, right? This feature is appearing in both the sexes, but the degree extent, that extent, how much how much extent it is affecting, it is, but is expressed to a different degree in each, right? That extent is different in both the sexes. This sex influence trait are autosomal trait. Like through this name, we can see that these are the sex, like these are not the autosomal traits, these are the sex traits, right? No, but this is not the case. These sex influence traits are the autosomal traits, but that are influenced by the sex. Many time in the competitive exam, people like this question will be there: is the sex influence traits are the autosomal traits or the sex traits? But as a name depicting, there is a not a autosomal traits, but it's the autosomal traits, that is the control by the autosomal, not by the sex, uh, like XX and YY. It's the autosomal trait. We know that the baldness is not the sex related. It's the autosomal, but it is influenced by the sex only. The character seems to act as a dominant in one sex. In case of sex influence, this character seems to act as a dominant in one sex and the recessive in other. Sex control character, also called as sex influence character, a genetically controlled feature that may appear and like same one. So we call, so the sex influence inheritance is the right answer. Anyone have any doubt on this question?
No, ma'am.
Okay. The next question is, the crossing of F1 to either of the parents is known as, option A is test cross, option B is back cross, option C is F1 cross, and D is none of the above.
Test cross.
Okay, test cross.
And back cross.
Okay, back cross.
Ma'am, back cross.
Okay. Should in test cross to we know na, like F1 will always cross with the what? Dwarf plant, right? Small t, right na?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes.
It's okay, because we already discussed, like in test cross it's fixed key we cross the F1 to the small t, that is dwarf, like homozygous recessive, right? So back cross is the right answer. Like if we take an example of this back cross, then the we'll consider that if the we will crossing the F1 either with the homozygous dominant or either with the homozygous recessive, right? So we called it as a back cross. So what is the back cross and why we use as back crossing? Is a crossing of a hybrid with one of its parents or an individual genetically similar to its parents to achieve offspring with a genetic identity closer to that parent, right? And normally this backcross and all we use it in horticulture and animal breeding, because we know that like if any plant like rice plant, we know that one capital T capital is giving a very nice seeds and very high nutrient rich genes. So we will always want the capital T capital T. So for that to will cross, and we know that some characters we need the small t. So through this we'll consider like which trait we want, and for that we'll do some back crossing, like sometime with the tall, sometime with the small one. So normally we use in a horticulture and that animal breeding and some gene knockout experiments and all. So this crossing of F1 to either of the parents, right? Anyone have any question? So always remember that the test cross, we will cross the F1 to the always homozygous recessive, and back cross will cross this F1 generation to either of the parents. Like it either like maybe the like homozygous dominant, we can cross with homozygous dominant, or we can cross with the homozygous recessive, right? Any doubt?
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay. So the next question, if two persons with AB blood group marry and have sufficiently large number of children, these children could be classified as A blood group, AB blood, AB blood group, and B blood group in 1 is to 2 is to 1 ratio, right? Modern technique of protein electrophoresis reveals presence of both A and B type of proteins in AB blood group individual. This is an example of first one is complete dominance, second one is codominance, and the third one is incomplete, and fourth one is partial dominance.
Codominance.
Okay,
Codominance.
okay. Anyone else? Like through this protein electrophoresis really reveals that the AB type of proteins. So what is the example? This is an example of what?
Ma'am, codominance.
Okay. Anyone else wants to answer? Okay, all of you are saying the codominance. We'll see. Codominance is the right answer, right? When both the alleles are coming and like this is a population based genetics, right? uh, like if we want to study this phenomena, can we study in an individual this codominance? Can we study in individual, or it's a population based phenomena? Hmm? Anyone know like what is this individual?
Population based.
Yeah, ma'am, it's a population based.
Right, population based, because like if I have a O blood group, right, and someone have a A blood group, we can't define this phenomena like by studying in only one individual, right? Because like in the pea plant too, we can say na like in one like whether what type of phenomena is there, but this is a population based phenomena. Like some may have A blood group, some B, some AB. This is all coded by the one gene that I, and they have this I, or A is there, or AB is there, or B is there, right? So what is this protein electrophoresis technique, gel electrophoresis? We called it as STS electrophoresis also. Have you heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What is this technique? In
Ma'am, basically
Ma'am,
we can
we
differentiate proteins according to the size.
right. Yeah. One more. Um, anyone else?
Ma'am, if we separate protein according to their densities.
Densities. Densities means mass per unit volume. More precisely, we can say that the molecular weight m by z, like mass to charge ratio, right? You mean right? like molecular weight, or we can say size. But more precisely, this STS electrophorus is based on the M by Z, like mass to charge ratio, and size. We can say density is like volume. Volume, we will not consider in this, in case of this protein electrophoresis, but size, you people are right. Okay, so like molecular weight. So in this protein electrophoresis, what we do is, like we make the some gel, and this gel is made up of acrylamide and bisacrylamide. STS is also there. This STS, why we call it as a STS, it is a kind of detergent which keep the charge, right? So that all the proteins will give this like same charge, and it will move according to the molecular weight, right? And after this like protein, and then we'll use some dye so that we can see the proteins. So we'll isolate the proteins, and then we run the gel, and then we load the samples, and then we run this. For that, some stacking and resolving gel will be there, and in the stacking gel, protein will stack, because we know that all protein are of different molecular weight, right? So we have to first stack in a one lane, right? For that, stacking gel will be there, in which this acrylamide percentage is different, and also we use some trisethial, a pH also different is there. So that mechanism will study sometime later if class will be there. Otherwise, you people can study like how it will work. And then resolving gel is there, in which this protein will resolve. And in after this, we will see this with the help of like some dye will be there. Um, Comessi blue, Comessi brilliant blue, or something. Then we'll see that what kind of band will be there. But here, to for particular protein we want to study, for that we have to add antibody of this, and we'll see whether how many bands is coming. And in the protein electrophoresis, what they saw that two types of proteins that are coming in AB blood group individuals. Here, like particularly they mentioned also like AB blood group individual, right? Because into A to we are not getting. So this is a population based study. That's why in the AB they found this. So if these two are coming, that means these two both are dominant, right? In one individual, both are coming, like A also and B also, like both are dominating, na, right? Because we are getting this too. So this is an example of this codominance, right? This red and white, like here we can see that another, like how it will work. This is the red and this is the white, and we're getting both like red and white petals, right? So this is an example of what codominance, because in this, like not even we are getting incomplete dominance, we are not getting any intermediate phenotype, right? And we are getting both like white also and red also in F1 generation. That means it is a codominant. In AB blood group also, not only A, not only B, we are getting in the F1 generation AB, like in this individual AB both. So this is a codominance, because both allele are dominant to each other, right? In one gene. So this is a codominance. Any doubt? Any doubt? Okay. Anyone have any question? Okay, then bye.